We're here with Rodney Merchant of Cervelo. He is the North American sales team lead, and we're going to talk about a brand new bike for Cervelo, the P4. Rodney, this looks like a really radical design for the P4. You guys have a long heritage in and time trials with very aerodynamic bikes. What's the big movement with this bike?
Well, the devil is really in the details on this bike. If you look at it, you see the shape is similar to the P3, but if you look at the bike, there's a lot of different things that we've done. You start at the front end of the bike, you notice the fork, which is integrated into the frame. It fits in there very aerodynamically. We tried about 50 different iterations of that fork in order to get it right, in order to get fit with the frame right. What we've also done is dropped the down tube a little bit so it's closer to the wheel, but there's no front wheel cutout because as the wheel moves, you get dirty air coming onto the frame, and putting a cutout just means you now have a big scoop catching a bunch of air. We left the frame the way it is because that allows the wind to reattach to the frame properly and give you good aerodynamic shape. You notice that we're also now routing the cables through the top tube, which gives you a cleaner front end and makes it more dynamic. And we've also made these cables serviceable by that port you can see on the down tube. So you can actually open that up and change the housing as often as you need, so you don't end up with a bunch of dirty housing inside an expensive frame. Plus it lowers the weight because you don't have a piece of housing running all the way down the frame. And then as you move back on the bike, you can see the integrated water bottle, where you can either use a water bottle, which is a true water bottle. It's about a 24-ounce water bottle that has a top you can open and fill on the fly for sort of a neutral support bottle during a half Ironman or Ironman race. And if you don't want to go with the bottle, you can put in a utility box, which allows you to carry spare tubes, spare tires, etc. Or you can just run a fairing if you have a hydration system that goes on the front end or the rear end of the bike. And that water bottle allows the frame to remain aerodynamic, and because of the position of it, even if you're running just the fairing, it's still UCI legal. The next step you want to take moving back on the bike is the brake. We've put the brake underneath the bottom bracket, underneath the chainstays, but instead of just hanging it there where it still has a terrible aerodynamic profile, we've actually recessed it back into the frame so that it's hidden from view, and then you have a fairing that goes over the top of it. But this fairing is UCI legal because it also acts as a brake booster. We put a lot of thought into it in order to get a very good feel to that brake, so it didn't feel like a choppy brake or a brake that felt like wood. It has a really good top-end brake feel to it because of the design of the brake and the fact that there's a brake booster. We went to the detail of making sure that you can open the brake without having to remove the cover so you can retract the rear wheel. And in fact, the little switch that opens the brake is shaped like an airfoil, so when it's closed, it has an aerodynamic profile. If you keep moving back on the bike, you notice that having moved the brake down to the bottom cleans up the rear area where the seat stays are, and makes the back end of the bike much more aerodynamic because now you have a proper shape for the wind to flow off the back of the bike. The seat stays not having to support a brake anymore allow them to be lowered on the frame, which gives you less frontal area and thus makes it more dynamic. The chainstays have been made much larger, and that doesn't have much to do with stiffness. It has more to do with the fact that now when you look at the stays straight on, they have an aerodynamic shape that mimics an airfoil shape such as you see on the down tube and on the C tube, and it also puts them closer to the rotating wheel so that the dirty air, the turbulent air that comes off that wheel is now reduced by the stays being much closer to the wheel. And the final detail, which is a nice little thing that you want to look at, is the set screws that set the wheel in close to the frame are no longer inside the dropouts. We actually have a little knurled piece right there that allows you to adjust the screws from the outside, so you don't even have to remove the wheel to set the set screw and put the wheel in close to the frame, keeping your full aerodynamic profile. So tons of little details throughout the bike that have added up to a huge aerodynamic gain. We already had the gold standard in aerodynamics with the P3, and we've taken it to the next level now with the P4.
And is the weight maintained the same as the previous version, or is this you've shed a little bit of weight?
It's in the same weight range as the P3, but what you get here is increased aerodynamics. So you're not paying a weight penalty, but when it comes to a TT bike, to aerodynamics will always trump weight. So same weight range as the P3, but much better aerodynamics.
And on the seat post design, is this considered to be a seat mast, or how would you classify your seat post design and the availability of different positions fore and aft?
Well, it would be considered a seat post because it's not part of the frame. You don't have a a mast that's coming up off the frame to attach a seat to, so it's a seat post because it's fully retractable from the frame. And you do have the two positions which allow you a wide range between 78 and 73 degree angle on there, and depending on where you sit on the saddle and where you put the rails on the saddle, you could argue that those angles are even wider than 73 to 78. The reason we haven't gone to a seat mast is we've tried it in the past, we've experimented. If you look at our wall over here that has our evolution of our bikes, the first P2 had a seat mast. However, by using a seat post, again, you reduce the frontal area, thus increasing the aerodynamics. So we find that it's still best to use a seat post because it's a better design aerodynamically, and it also has a side benefit of allowing you to remove the seat when you're traveling, and the bike fits into more standard travel cases.
And you've had a long association with CSC and also really in the development of your bikes, working closely with them. Now you are launching in your own team. Tell us a little bit about that strategy.
Well, what we've done is we've moved towards a Cervelo test team. We're very proud of the work we did with CSC, and we wish them lots of luck in the future, and they've been integral to the development of a lot of our bikes. And where we're moving now is towards a team that is more geared towards Cervelo's values, which is that they aid us in developing the bikes that we're making. That's a big part of the team. Obviously, the racing's a big part of the team, but we're very interested in the team that we can work with from a development point of view, who are involved intrinsically in aiding in the designs of the bikes, because unlike a lot of models where a company will give a team their bikes to ride and it's basically a marketing strategy, for us what we're looking for is riders who really buy into the concept that they're helping to develop the next level of bikes and cycling, because it helps them as athletes, and obviously it helps us as a brand, and in the end it helps the everyday rider to get a much better bike that is the same bike that the pros are riding.
Thank you very much, and best of luck with the Cervelo test team.
Well, thank you very much.